everyone, it's Amy and welcome back for another Foam Stamps 101. Today we are going to be making masks. I thought that these would be fun if you were going to have a New Year's Eve party or something, to do invitations and put these on the front, or for a masquerade ball, but they're just fun. I really do like playing with these and putting them on different projects that I make. So I'm going to show you how to make them. They're so simple. And they all turn out so different. And there's different ways to cut them. How to cut them to make kind of like a nose, like a Mardi Gras type mask, where it's just across the eyes. Or to make them more like with a chin like a whole face. So I'm going to show you both of those ways, how to cut them. And then decorating them, that's just a matter of doing it however you would like to. So, but let's get started. It's super simple. The first thing, what I did was I went ahead and I already glued some fun foam to a piece of cardboard. And so that way it's dry and I can cut it out when we're done and we can see what it looks like. You can do it just on the foam first and then glue just the mask itself to the cardboard and cut around it, or you can do it this way. So the first thing you want to do is kind of I used to fold my foam, not have it on cardboard, and fold my foam in half and try and get my shape a little symmetrical so that both sides were the same. I do like that with my masks. But now I draw the mask on a piece of paper and then I trace it onto my fun foam, and I've already got my fun foam glued down. So, but what you want to do is you want to have a piece of paper that is about the size that you want your mask. So I'm going to have two pieces of paper here, and those are about this size. It's a little bit smaller than this one, I guess, if we did it that way, but I always do it this way. So it's a little smaller than this one. Maybe not. See, that would work if we went right to the top and right to the bottom. And it's big enough, to make both of these types of masks. And I don't really want them any bigger than that. This paper doesn't look super big, but this is a pretty good size mask. And so you want to think about where you're going to put it. And you can make them any size. You can even make them really small. So then what I do to make them symmetrical is I fold it in half and I cut my mask. So in order to do a mask that kind of has a chin, I'm going to go this way because I'm going to cut like that. You're going to start at the bottom. Now remember, if you go like, does this one work? If you cut it this way, if you come up here and you cut it like this, so it kind of looks like a chin, what's going to happen is when you open this up, it's going to look like this, because it's going to be symmetrical. So you don't want to come down. You want to come straight across at that point so that it actually is a, rounded chin. So we're going to just kind of come straight in and then curve up, remembering that the chin is going to be twice as wide as what you're cutting. So as we look here, let's see. Our chin is already this big from here to here. So it does depend on how big, you have to remember when you're cutting, especially in the center, this is going to be twice as big. The rest of it will be however you cut it. But here and here, you have to remember that however long you cut it, that's going to be twice as wide as what you cut. So to me, that's kind of a nice size for the chin. And if I had cut that wide, my chin would be like out here, if that makes any sense. So I cut it right to there, and that's going to be where my chin is. And then I'm just going to kind of start maybe doing a little bit of like just rounded shapes to come up to the top. And then if you want ears at this point in time, you're going to kind of cut out like this and then cut back in. And that's going to kind of give you an ear there. And remembering that the forehead is here. So if you want the forehead to be just kind of like straight across, or if you want it to be rounded down. You have to remember that when you're cutting that center point, if you go down, you're going to have an indentation, which we could do that. That's kind of cool to have that. So we're going to go like this, maybe come back up not quite as high, and then we're going to go down for this one. Instead of coming straight across at the chin, we came down. And so here's the difference. When you swoop in, whether it's at the chin or whether it's at the top, you're going to have this little point here. And going straight across before you start to round or anything, then you're going to have more of that rounded chin. So there is one. Now, in order to get my eyes the same, I go ahead and I fold it in half again, deciding kind of where do I want my eyes. Now you can, if it's easier for you to open it up and look at it to see where you want your eyes. Hold on just one second. I have a little bit of a cold. Okay, if you want to see where you want your eyes, I only do one, but I say, oh, well, I think maybe I want my eyes like in this area. Yep, I kind of like that area. So what I'm going to do at this point then is I'm going to fold this in half. I'm going to fold the eye area in half like that. So what's going to happen is I'm going to cut an eye right here, but it's going to do it. It's going to do it on both sides. So it will cut an eye here. It will also cut an eye here so that they're the same. Because it kind of does drive me a little bit crazy if I do them individually and they're way off. I don't really care for that. So again, remember, if I like make a big dent there, it's going to have some kind of a dent, and I want it to be more straight at the top of the eye. So I'm going to just kind of go straight, curve down. And when I say straight, I just mean I'm not making my scissors go up like this, and I'm not making my scissors go down like this. So that would either make a point or a V. So I just mean I'm kind of holding my scissors right, however that is with the paper. Perpendicular. I used to know all of that, and now I don't. So here we go. There are my eyes. And if you don't like them, you can adjust them. It's like, oh, maybe you might want them a little more rounded or something like that. So that's all, up to you. That's all preference. At this point, I don't do any more. You could do a nose, but whatever you cut out of here is going to leave a blank area when you stamp. So normally when it comes to something in the nose area, I just do my doodling in that area instead of cutting it out and making it a big blank space. But you can do that. So, and then color it in at some other point. So there is one. Let's turn him over this way so you don't see all the marks. There is one with a chin. So he has a chin. And so now we'll make one where it's kind of like the nose of a mask and a little bit thinner. And so we're going to fold it in half. And we're going to start here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of come up a little bit because I don't want this one quite as long as this. I want this more kind of long and straight. So I'm going to say, well, right about here is where I want my nose. And again, I want my nose to be rounded, so I'm not going up or down because I don't want a point there. So I'm going to start, I'll start here and just won't go all the way to the top. I'm going to start right here, and I'm going to come in, and I'm going to kind of round it up. That's going to be my nose. So it kind of, with these masks, to me, it kind of like, it has the nose here, and then it kind of like comes down on the cheeks a little bit. So I'm going to do my nose and kind of round up. And then I'm going to kind of come down a little bit for what's going to be on the cheek part of my mask. And then we'll have the edges. And this one is going to be much smaller than the other, thinner, I guess I would say. And maybe let's say we want this one to have a point at the top. So we're going to go up. Whereas here, when we cut it, we went down. Here we went up. So let's see what that looks like. And so that is what that looks like. And then we're going to put our eyes in. Now this one kind of has the nose here and it has the cheek pieces here. I want the nose a little bit further up, you know, because I want these a little longer. I didn't make them quite long enough. So, and this is making my mask smaller, but that's totally fine because you want all sizes really. So I'm just going to come into here, go up a little bit, and then round it. And come back down. And there, I like that better. I like the cheek pieces a little bit longer. And I like this little point at the top on this one. Now we're going to do the eyes. So where do I want the eyes? Maybe in this area. Okay, so I'm going to fold that in half. About. And then this one is very rounded at the top, but very kind of straight across here at the bottom. So this one I kind of want to make rounded on both sides. So I'm going to come in and round it down. And then come in and round it up. And see how that looks. And there we go. Now it's rounded both top and bottom. So these are the two masks. We have like our nose piece and we have our chin. And actually this nose piece, usually I like it to be more rounded. I kind of came down just a little bit, which didn't make it as rounded as I normally like them. But it still works. I still like it. So we're going to do these just like they are. And so I'm going to put this one on here. Or this one. So this is my favorite type of mask, and I've got a little bit of, let me show you this if you can see it. There's a little bit of a mess right here on my fun foam. There's no way to get rid of that because those are dents in the actual fun foam. It's not like I accidentally pressed my finger into it or something. Doing that, you can heat it up and get rid of that. But this right here is in the foam, and so being that this is my favorite mask, I really don't want it on here. I would rather have it on this one. So if it turns out bad, this one can have a blemish. It doesn't, oh, now look, that worked out really perfect. There's my blemish right there. Can you see it? It's going to wind up going away. That's perfect. Okay, so then you're just going to hold it down. You can tape it down if you want to. Just don't push too hard. And just trace around it. The eyes, I use an X-Acto knife to cut out. The rest of it, I cut with my scissors. And you can cut them however it's comfortable for you to do it. Now, in tracing them, sometimes and then cutting them out, sometimes they're not perfectly symmetrical. Like if I had cut this out of my fun foam, it would basically be perfectly symmetrical, but when you're tracing it, you could get off a little bit. As you're cutting it, you can get off a little bit. That little bit doesn't bother me. And I really just prefer cutting it out this way versus cutting out the fun foam. Because sometimes it moves on me and then, you know, it just winds up to where I don't like it. So, but you can do it either way. And if it, you know, just letting you know, if you do it this way, it could wind up just a little bit off. Like, see, this here is a little more straight and this here is a little more rounded in right there. So, but to me, that's not a big deal. And if you don't want to cut the eyes out, you can actually leave the eyes in. I'll show you a picture at the end of one I did where I just drew the eyes on instead of cutting them out. Okay, so then I'm going to put this one right here so I don't waste too much. And I really like these ones. These ones remind me of like the Mardi Gras masks. I like the ones that just kind of go over your eyes and they have like a little stick that holds them up. You hold them up to your face. And if there's something that you don't like, I just recut the paper before I start tracing until I like it. And you know what? It's a little tiny piece of paper. This was even a scrap piece of paper. So, you know, if you mess it up, it doesn't, you know, throw it away and make another one until you like it. You don't, just because you've drawn one on the paper, you don't have to do it on your fun foam. So it's supposed to be no stress. It's supposed to be just for fun. That eye's a little smaller than that one. And actually, if I hold this down, I got a little off my paper. Maybe I didn't. Okay. All right, so there we go. And now we're just going to cut them out. And then once you cut them out, you can leave them totally solid like this. You don't have to doodle on them. I like to doodle on them and then have that pattern on them when I stamp them, excuse me, versus it being a solid color when I stamp them. Like I said, if you wind up getting off the lines or something, I'm going straight across here to get that out of my way. And both sides are not exactly the same. That's totally okay because it's yours. It's homemade, and homemade is not perfect. You want perfect, then you buy it from a factory, and it's not really yours. It's just the same one that everybody else has. This way it's yours. Even if everybody's making these, yours will be yours alone. And you'll never have two. Even when you try and make them exactly alike, if you really like one, you'll get close. But you'll never have one that's exactly the same as another. And so there we go. And then I need to... Oh, hold on, my X-Acto knife is stuck. There we go. Okay. And something to cut on. So if you don't have one of these cutting boards, which this came from the Dollar Tree, keep these because we'll be using those. And actually, we might use those before these in the order that they come out. Okay, so now I'm just going to use my X-Acto knife. Keeping your fingers out of the way, and that is very, very important. And out of the way means not just away from it. Right now, this knife is pointing away from my fingers. In just a second, right here, I'm kind of pointed towards this finger. Move it, because if this slips and goes, oh, you're going to cut right across your finger. Believe me, I know what I'm talking about. Twice. So there we go. And we're going to cut through it twice because it didn't cut through the first time all the way. And then what I do is I turn it over and kind of see if it's still attached anywhere. Where is it still attached? And it's still attached right there. So I'm going to cut that from the back because it's just the cardboard that's attached. There we go. So there is one. And if you find out that this little bit of jaggedy is too much, then you'll go in and you'll just, you know, smooth it out with your knife or just with your hands or whatever. And I always cut my eyes out. If you're going to cut the eyes out, I always do it before I do all my doodling. And the reason that I do that is I have come to where I went to cut the eyes out before and I made a huge mess. And then all the time I spent doodling was wasted because the eyes were so bad, I just had to get rid of them. So that's why I do that first. And here I want to try and change the side just a little bit because I did not like the shape of it. Okay, and I think that that looks better. So, and then we would do the same thing with this one. Now, we're going to do our doodles on this one and see what it looks like. Save these. You never know what you might want to use these for. You actually could put like little marks on them, like this, with your pen, and get it pressed down till it's all pressed down, and then use it to stamp eyeballs. Like that. And then you can just stamp it like that. So, little cat eyes or something. And put those over there. And so we'll just do the doodles on this. Remembering that if you doodle with a pen that has ink in it, if you use a solvent-based, like permanent type ink pad, the solvent in that permanent ink pad will take this ink and it will, how do I want to say that? It will reliquify it, and you will get the ink on your paper for a while. So I always save pens that are dried up, and my family will come in my art room and they'll borrow a pen when I'm not here, and they'll be like, oh, it's all dried up, and they'll throw it away. So mark them and maybe put notes on them that say, do not throw away. But, so anyways, you're just going to start to doodle. And so that, because it doesn't do much good, you can't really see this. I'm going to use this one, even though I do prefer to use ones that do not have ink in them. But it doesn't transfer always. Eventually it kind of goes away. And if you use a water-based ink pad, it does not come off. So then you just decide, like, how do you want to do your doodles? And now this one is starting to lose its ink. Sometimes they do that if they don't like, they kind of like, some pens don't like your fun foam. And I find that, you know, like as I'm doodling, I doodle the same on each side. But because it's kind of like here I'm starting and going out, I can't get them exactly the same. And, you know, it has something to do with like the way when I swoosh this way versus swooshing this way, it's just like I never get them quite the same. And that's okay. Again, it's your stamp, so it should be a little bit different. But I just like to do the same thing on each side, even if it doesn't look exactly the same. And you'll take your time doing this. You know, like the more time that you take, you know, sometimes the cooler it looks. I'm just going to kind of try and do this a little bit fast, but a little bit not, because I don't want to totally like dislike it. And the thing is, you think that you know what it's going to look like, and then when you get it, when you go to print it, sometimes it doesn't look anything like what you thought, which is such the cool part about it. It is so fun to stamp them and find out what it looks like. Because where your marks are, you know, those places are going to be white. So if this pen was still working, what you were seeing, all of these marks would they would be blank. And all the area that I didn't mark up is what would be stamping on your paper. So let's just that one I took right off the edge. I don't usually like to do that, but since I did it, I'm going to do it on both sides, take it all the way off the edge. And this will be the end of this one. And then we'll stamp it and see what it looks like. But it takes a little while to do this part. But it's so worth it in the end. Plus the whole reason to be crafting is to take time. Spend your time doing something that takes your mind off whatever's going on and just makes you feel good. So it's okay if it takes a bit of time. And you can always, you don't have to finish everything when you start it. If you only have 10 minutes a day to craft and you want to make some stamps and it takes 20 minutes to make a stamp or 30 minutes to make a stamp, do it in a few days. That's okay. So let's grab a piece of paper and see what this one looks like. Not totally ready today. Good thing everything is close. So we're going to put a handle on it. I don't like to put a handle over the eyes because I'm afraid the ink might get on it. So what I do is I cut it. I cut it out. Where's my, oh, right in front of me. I do cut it back, being careful not to slip and ruin my what I've already got there. I'm just going to cut this like this and then just peel this off. There we go, that works. Yep. And I want one more on this side so that I have a good, it's just easier to pick it up and down. Having two handles versus one. I wonder if I just, let's see how that one, cut it there. I still need to cut the eye up here. Yeah, that worked. There. All right. But these are fun to make. It's fun to make little ones, bigger ones. I like to do them two-tone. That's kind of fun too, like this one, where it's the two-tone. And I think by feeling those, this is paint. It's not ink. So earlier in the series, I showed you how to make a paint pad. with a drying cloth from the Dollar Tree, and those work really well. If you have bigger stamps and you don't have big ink pads, you can take your stamp and move it across your smaller ink pad. But if you're going to be doing a lot of stamping with big stamps, it's fun to just do a paint pad and do it with paint instead of ink, and it turns out really well. And like that one, I even couldn't remember what I did. You can feel the paint a little bit more than the ink, which I kind of like. I like things that I make to have texture to them. And I like people to touch them. You know, don't touch the artwork. You can touch my artwork. I really don't mind. To me, it's kind of what it's there for. It's kind of like, ooh, what's it made out of? Ooh, what does it feel like? So there we go. Remember, putting your thing on here, I'm not pressing super hard. I am just making sure that all the different areas have touched my paper, and I'm giving the ink time to soak off of my stamp and onto my paper. And again, repetitive. I repeat things all the time. And so there we go. And see, this one is a little wider, or I didn't get as much ink in this area. My marks are a little close together. So, and I must not have pressed down maybe in that spot. If I press down, let's see. Okay, that gives me a little bit more definition. I just didn't press down in that spot, so it didn't give me the definition that it could have. So that's all things to remember. And remember how I said I don't normally take them off the edge? I don't like how that went off the edge like that. I prefer it to be inside my stamp, but it's still okay. And maybe what I'll do is take these two off the edge also. So it, I don't know, kind of goes together. But, my pushed in spots are a little bit large because I was going so fast. So like I made them a little wider than I could have, but still. And then it is a matter of pressing down so that you get a good impression, not pressing hard, but just making sure that it touches in every area so that you get a better impression of your spots. And if you don't like the way they turned out, now I don't like how that happened, but I could take a marker and just use my marker to fix those spots. And so now that doesn't bother me. Now I like the way it looks. So remember, there is no right or wrong way. I can take these and do this. I don't like the way that goes off the paper or off the stamp, but if I make it go off the stamp, I like the way that that looks. Maybe make these, was that 2 spots or 1? Nope, that was just 1. So, but that's it. So, you don't have to, how do I want to say that? When you're stamping these, part of the fun part is going in and coloring in some or all of your white spaces. So that is what gives it even more definition. But having the white around your marker really gives it a really cool look also. Instead of like coloring all the white in, just putting the marks where you had the marks on your paper and leaving it partly white. Like that. And see, now that looks a whole lot better than it looked when we started. And then when I cut them out, I normally cut the eyes out, or I will color the eyes in. I'm not really good with eyes. So, like, that's kind of why I do them like that, because they're a mask and then I don't have to do the eyes. I just cut the eyes out and I've got my mask. So, but there's lots of videos on YouTube that will teach you how to do eyes if you're not good at it too. I just haven't bothered looking. Well, I have looked, I just haven't bothered learning. So, but this is how we make them. And again, you can leave them solid if you want to when you stamp them. And then just make marks on them. I just like to have that definition. And let's see, because I pressed a little more on that, on this one, see, we did get a little bit more definition there. And I got things, you'll learn things like don't get too close together. So because you want to make sure, even though there's a little bit of a space between my lines, because the lines round the fun foam down, your marks will be wider than what you see here. So you remember that too. Make things a little bit further apart so that they're a little more defined. So, but there we go. That's masks. And so these two masks that I have here, I'll just show you those quick. And I just have this is a plastic divider, and we did this in my Build Your Stash Cheaply series, but we just sewed pockets, and then we just cut below the thread here so that we actually would have these pockets in order to put these into to keep them nice and safe. And then I always have a piece of cardstock on the other side. See these ones? Now they have cardstock on this side. So, but here's the one that I said, I'll bring this up like this. This is the one I said where you could draw the eyes on. So this one I drew the eyes on. The center went very deep, and then we have the little eyelashes on here. They turned out pretty good, a little close there, but always it's about learning. And this way I just have to like color in the eyes there. And then this is my little fox. I didn't mean him to look like a fox when I was doing it. I didn't think of it. Now that's the only thing I see when I see it. But to me, it looks like a little fox. And I love the way that that one turned out. So it's trial and error. And, you know, it doesn't take much, but just a little bit of fun foam and some time. And then you wind up with some really cool things. So those are all the different masks that I have around here. Well, no, it's probably not all of them, to tell you the truth. I probably have more than these. So, but I hope that you have fun making some, because they're really, really fun to make. So, and some of them, this one, I really don't care for that one. And I don't know that I've ever even, I might have used it once. This one I use all the time. This one I use all the time. These are my two favorites. I use that one every so often, but these are my two favorites, and you're going to find that, and it's okay. You can have favorites. It's not like kids where you're not supposed to have favorites. You can have favorites when you make your own stamps. So thank you very much for stopping by. I really do appreciate each and every one of you, and I really do hope that you all have an outstanding day. Bye-bye.